All right, gang, there are many conversations happening amongst professionals in the retail auto industry about what it will take to not just survive, but thrive during these very interesting times. Right now, we're seeing OEMs rushing to create some competition within the direct-to-consumer buying segment, while there are also rumblings about the mass consolidation on the horizon. But if there's one thing we know for certain, it's that there is a bigger fish we must all focus on: the customer. That's who the biggest fish has always been, and if you're asking me, it's who it will always be. At the end of the day, it's our job to remove friction from the buying journey, and fortunately, that's something within each of our control. Friction is the silent killer of the deal and of the relationship. Joining me today is a seasoned BDC director turned paid campaign manager whose years of experience and mission to provide an enhanced customer service experience have definitely paid off. Marija, thank you so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook podcast.
Hi there, finally.
It's finally happened.
It's finally happening, yes. I'm really, really glad to be here and, join you and discuss this wonderful industry of ours. So I'm super excited and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Well, I'm delighted you're here. There are a lot of conversations happening, aren't there? And everybody never really gets to the solution. It's always, right? Don't you feel like there's a little bit of fear mongering always? And, oh dear, GM and Car Bravo and what is that going to look like? And oh, did you catch the keynote at CES where they didn't say go and buy the Silverado from your local dealer? They said go to Chevy.com. My question for you along these lines are, first and foremost, I'm curious what your thoughts are about the current landscape in retail automotive.
Well, first of all, we all knew that this is going to happen. This is not anything new, okay? This talks about, OEMs going and selling directly to the public existed in past 10 years. Well, since Tesla started doing it. So this is nothing new. Then we have this whole switch or this whole push to going electric by all manufacturers across the board and new players coming into the, arena. And then we had, the offset or onset of this marketplaces coming up, are they successful or not? Let's not even go there, like Carvana and Vroom and all of them, disruptors, whatever we call them. But they're there, they're part of it. So the OEMs and the dealers had to figure something out where, they are going to be able to compete. Because if they're not, somebody else out there will. And we have been talking about this for probably past 10 years. It got really, really fast tracked past COVID and pandemic. And we kind of learned that this is possible and it can be done with the right process and with the right people and just with the right tools. And, once you marry the process with the correct tool and then, you implement training, you can do anything you really want. The dealers on the other side are kind of always looking at all of this and they're like, oh my God, this is going to end us. And it's
right.
How many changes have been in just last 20 years? They looked at, the rise of internet and internet leads as a scary big wolf. Nothing really happened, that, people, giving the price over the phone was back 5 years ago was oh my God, we should not do that. And now we have digital retail tool that is able to spit out that price within seconds. And majority of the dealers are fine with that option. So
right.
As we are changing, I think that both dealers and OEMs need to almost have a sit down and talk and kind of, figure out what is the best solutions that will work out for, either side. Because OEMs cannot sell by themselves, neither can dealers without the support of OEM on both advertising front and just logistics and everything else.
Yeah. Don't you, it kind of makes me think about how us living, breathing creatures are the only things in the universe resistant to expansion.
Correct.
The universe is constantly expanding, solar systems expanding, stars expanding, vegetation expanding. You know what I mean? And then when it comes to us, we have to legitimately be forced to expand because we emotionally feel the discomfort associated with it. But, as you were talking, it made me think of a couple of things. First, what did horse and carriage dealers feel like when cars started to take over? And coincidentally, what processes must they have had to adapt to in order to either stay in business and evolve or go out of business? Because that's really the proposition that's in front of us right now. You had mentioned process. And what I think is interesting about this is we're at a time where those who have been shouting process from the rooftops and being ignored for the last 20 years or more are now at the forefront of the conversation, because we realize that the only way to actually compete, thrive, and survive is to not just talk about process anymore, but to actually implement it. And we'll get to some actionable stuff here in a minute, but I'm curious, based on everything that you've just said, what should the dealer be focused on? Because we are absolute beings in that everything is going to be the worst, right? Like, you remember when, I don't know if many people remember how Web 2.0 rolled out. It's not what we thought it was going to be. And now here we are with Web 3 and Metaverse and, like all of these different things. And I'm almost certain that it's not going to end up being what we think today it's going to actually end up being, because it's just going to morph over and over again. So I'm curious, from that perspective, hype aside, what do you believe the number one most important thing dealership should be focused on today?
Embrace the change and not fear the change. Like on that level of, from anywhere from receptionist to, like a BDC room to, desk, finance, service drive, all of it, because the change is coming. And if you don't embrace it and you're scared of it and you try to just basically either ignore it or like go against it, you'll lose either way. So, in my opinion, is just embrace it, because you never know. Like you said, with the internet, with like anything else in life, every time we relax and we just let it happen, 99.9% of the time is better than what we expected. So,
Right.
like, just let it be. And some dealers have been around for, 40, 50, 60, 80 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were able to adapt to the change and embrace it and take it on and do what they do best, which is take care of their customer. And when they take care of their customer while slowly adapting to the new normal, it's just everybody's going to win. I don't see it any other way.
It's funny. Probably, I want to say March of 2019, I gave a keynote in Toronto. You remember 2 years ago, it was all about disruption. That's what we were all talking about. Disruption. So I gave a keynote on disruption, the concept of what you just said about how we need to focus more on the customer and how doing so would allow us to ebb and flow with the changing tides. I think, and maybe this is me being critical of myself, I think I bombed. I don't think I did justice to this conversation. But what I do think is interesting, to your point, is that here we are 2 years later. None of us in March 2019 or 2018 knew what was on the impending doom that was on the horizon. But look at what's happening, to your point. Those that stayed focused on the customer did some really incredible things during the pandemic and during lockdowns. They repurposed their dealerships and their fleet of shuttles to become grocery delivery and, human transport and like so many different things. And so I love this concept of evolving and embracing the change. But then I also think about the constant, as things morph and as things evolve, there's going to be something, there will be a few elements of the old way of doing things that pass through to the new way of doing things. Mm-hmm. One of which you just said, which is the customer experience and the customer service. So in your opinion, from your years now in being a business development director at the dealership level, where do we start? What are some things that dealership can do starting today to kick into motion an enhanced or an improved customer experience?
I mean, introspection, just like looking at the things and themselves as an organization, as they are, and where they are at right now, and what they can do today to get better in the future. Because, the change that's coming and that nobody can escape is either, 10 steps ahead or one step ahead. Regardless, you still have to do that first step. You still have to do the step number one. So for some dealerships, that's basically going and looking at all the vendors they have and looking at all the spend they have both on marketing and lead acquiring and just general like finance spenders, whatever they're using. They need to like look at all of that. They need to look at their structure as far as how do they operate, who answers the phones, why, who is, do they have like a delivery person, do they have like in-house marketing team, do they want to move into that direction? So like all those things, and then figure out what kind of business they want to be. The next step would be like a case study with their customer base. Like they see their customers on a daily basis, maybe not as much in the showroom for sales, but they see their customers in service every single day. I
Right.
suggest to general managers, sales managers, finance managers out there, get up, from your office, walk to the service drive and talk to your customers. That's where your answer is what you need to change. Your customers will tell you what do they want you to do differently so they can keep coming back for service, and then obviously, buying their next vehicle for themselves or for anybody else in their family. And just don't forget, like, just because they have one car in their household, that doesn't mean that they cannot bring you 10, 15, 20 different customers of the people they know. We all know that the referral business is the best business there is. So
Right.
go out and talk to them. And then, sit down with your team, with, your team of managers, and include your team that is not managers in the conversation and say, okay, here where we at. This is where we need to go. How do we do that? Let's create actionable process of 1, 2, 3 to get where we want to go as a team. And what are the things that you can take up to help us get there? And I think there's like nothing more like humble or like better for general managers, directors, sales managers to do than to include their team. And I guarantee you, everybody on the team would, want to jump in and help, because they're frustrated just as the customers are frustrated. And lack of communication between, management and sales and BDC and service, and then lack of communication of like service riders to customers, because they don't get enough of a say or enough of a push from their management to say or deliver some type of information that they wouldn't, because it's part of their process, is just hurting everybody. So like, I think it needs to start with introspection, then creating a process, then implementing it, and just go for it.
You said something that really intrigued me. And excuse me, our first COVID podcast where the host is infected. And I wrote down the word reviews. When you said your customers will tell you, I wrote down the word reviews because what came to my mind is when I go to Amazon, the first thing I do, especially if it's a product or a company that I'm not certain of, is I just click the reviews thing right at the top so it scrolls me down. But you know what I found, and I don't know if this is just me, so I'd love your take on it. What actually turns me off is when I see this sentence: this review was submitted as part of a promotional offer or as part of a paid incentivized offer. So, I mean, I get it. Company wants to get their product out and get some reviews. So they probably, they send the product to a bunch of people in exchange for a review. But just the fact that it was kind of an incentivized review makes me feel like I'm not legitimately getting to the crux of like how that person really felt. It's like when a leader goes to their employee and says, "Do you like working here?" Well, what's the employee going to say to their face? So what's your opinion about reviews? Because I know there are platforms and softwares that dealers are using to try and generate and incentivize submission of Google reviews and dealer rater reviews and all these sorts of things. But do you think that in this changing climate that you're talking about, that's going to have as much pull as what you just said, the manual approaching of a customer who's already buying and just asking them, "Hey, what could we have done better?" What are your thoughts?
I mean, reviews are great. And I think that most dealerships focus so much on the reviews for their variable side and not so much for their, fixed ops, which I think it should be other way around. Because in, fixed operations and service is what people are going to be going back to the dealerships more of in the future, more than ever, because we will still need, dealer centers and,
Right.
centers to service those vehicles, electric or not. We're not going to know how to fix those. Doesn't matter that they run on battery, right? So we're going to need, somebody's help to, even to teach us how to use it and all of that. So like focusing on that part of for reviews, because you really need somebody that you can trust and somebody that can be of help in a time of need when something's broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like as far as sales and moving into like I'm looking at this at like 3 steps ahead. If this metaverse works out the way I see it, I think we're not gonna see that much people going in and like test driving, because will there be a need for that? Like will there be a need for a physical visit to a dealership prior to purchasing something? Meaning, like what you want to buy, and if all dealers are the same, then you just going to decide where you're gonna buy something. How are you gonna decide that you're gonna buy?
Right.
A couple of different approaches. Like reviews is just one of them, but people
Mm-hmm.
always pick convenience over any opinion. Like so like you can read as many reviews as you want on Amazon, and you can read about the same product that you can buy 10 times cheaper on like Alibaba, right? And you will go with Amazon because it's going to be on your doorstep next day, and you're going to be able to return it to Kohl's, and you're not going to have any type of problem in between those steps. Where like if you buy it from Alibaba, you're going to pay less, but you're going to wait 14 days to get it.
Right.
Where you're going to return it. And people want convenience. People will pay more money for convenience. So to answer your question, reviews are important, but not the most important. Should we focus on them? Absolutely, if they're real. And it's just a question of time where dealers are going to start paying people for reviews. In a way, they kind of are, because, some dealers do gift cards and all of this kind of stuff. So,
Right.
you know, like I said, I don't think we need them as much for variable side of the business, but for fixed ops, yes, because, most of the cars that we drive today are $20,000 plus. And that's a big investment, and you want to take it somewhere where you know that they're not going to break it. So,
Love it. Moving on to, I want to talk a little bit more about BDC in particular. So we recently set up a Discord server for the DPB gang. For those of you that are not familiar with Discord, it depends on what generation you're from, but if you're from my generation, think AOL Messenger. If you're from a newer generation, think Slack, but free. We set up this Discord server, and of course, in this channel, there's a BDC channel, and I asked a question for you there, and you were so good about leaving me on the hook, and the question was, in so many dealerships, and I could be wrong, but I think most dealerships have a sales department.
mm-hmm.
And more are trying to develop out BDC departments. I believe that the best success happens when there's a single revenue department where BDC and frontline salespeople are part of the same team. And so I asked the question for you, how do we more integrate BDCs and sales departments so that they're not in a silo, so that there isn't this gap, so that there isn't this weird, I don't know what rivalry, or if you want to call it that. And you said, we'll talk about that on the podcast. So I've been curious ever since I asked the question, what can we do to create a revenue department where BDC and sales are on the same team, not continue to be siloed and working against each other?
Well, you just said it. Be on the same team. I mean, it's very like, I worked in a couple of different dealerships, and I was fortunate enough where I was giving a reign of how I'm going to build my department and who I'm going to hire, where I'm going to seat them. And when I was given that option to have my people wherever I wanted them to, I asked that I can have them on a showroom floor. Because I don't, like them sitting in a lunchroom or using the part of the conference room or some basement closet and like setting. I mean, like I know that for many dealerships, in-house BDC is not an option, but for the ones that is, and I think it should be, because really, like, you can have one BDC manager, one BDC director overlooking all the stores, but in-house BDC, those couple of reps that you need per store, if the store is of a normal size, right?
Mm-hmm.
Couple people, maybe 3 people with the shifts and everything. There is enough room on a dealership floor for them. And the reason for that is, they are able to communicate with, their sales counterparts. They're able to see that interaction when the customer comes in, and if they set the appointment for somebody that was not in the market or not approvable or something, they can see and feel the frustration coming from a salesperson that, wasted their time, right? I don't think it's ever a waste of time if you do it correctly. However,
Mm-hmm.
topic, right? But, and the same for salespeople, because what do you see at the most dealerships when you go and you look at the salespeople, right? You go in and you have one person that's with the customer, you have one person running around like a headless chicken, and then you have other 6 salespeople on their desk, on their phone, doing this. Okay? And then you have a BDC room in which what happens is like calls and calls and calls.
Right.
Now, if you have them in the same room, the person on a cell phone sooner or later is going to turn in and going to be like, damn, Maria's been killing it all freaking day. She's been dialing and trying to get me opportunities. And what do? TikTok? At least if I'm making TikToks and I'm making something, to build my brand and everything, fine. But just to
Right.
it's really, it's not helping me. So
Right.
what happens after, 3, 6, 9 months is like they get up from their desk and they come to the BDC person and say, hey, I seen you spoke to Mrs. Smith and you told her such and such. Next time, if you get her on the phone, can you just call me? Because I have been trying to get in touch with her for like months, but I wasn't able to. And this is what you say to, get her to come in, because we did find the vehicle she wanted to, and we're able to do this striping, which is none of the information that BDC would ever have if they're like upstairs or downstairs in the basement, right? Not upstairs,
Right.
basement, upstairs,
Uh-huh.
showroom.
Right. Yep.
So that was like a solution number 1. Solution number 2, to integrate them even more is, bring your salespeople to that BDC desk and have them make phone calls or send emails together. Like go through the customer list. This is the people I'm going to call today. This is what I'm going to say. And sometimes salesperson is going to be like, wait a minute. I have like 5 people that you can call for me that maybe are better, deal, because they're closer to being closed than the ones that you haven't heard from for 90 days. Or, have your BDC agent go and make a video of, a piece of inventory to send to a customer, but to do it the salesperson way, meaning what is the process if I need to pull up a pre-owned vehicle and take it to a wash for a customer to view? What is the process that the salesperson will take? So are they going to just like go and ask somebody else to do it? No, they're going to have to do it themselves. They have to know
Right.
out the key, go and get the car, wash it, and park it back out and put the key back. And once the BDC agent does that like once or twice a day because they don't have enough time, right? They're making phone calls. But if they do it once or twice a day, they start appreciating what salespeople do. And what happens is they really become that one team. They're not doing each other's job, but everybody's doing their job, but they're working together on the same goal. And
Yeah.
wonderful things happens. Close rates goes up. All of a sudden, salespeople are more open to checking in people into the showroom. They're not like skipping. BDC does not have to waste time of having like a separate list of, appointment tracking because the CRM is not telling them the real picture, right?
Right.
And it's just they work together, so it's I don't know. It was awesome when we did this, and I've did that for like past 4 or 5 years. And honestly, like, we had less turnaround, our close rates were amazing, everybody was making money, people were getting promoted. It just worked out for everybody.
It's so genius in that it's simple to execute, in my opinion. Okay, maybe you're not going to redecorate the dealership today, but like you said, what I'm picking up on here is it's just helping your team increase empathy for one another, so that they can find these, these inroads, so that they can be partners and not water boy versus football player. It's like, no, we're all actually on the same team. I would love to see any NFLer play a full game without getting access to water and or oxygen or whatever. And so increasing the empathy for one another as an inroads to build that partnership, I think, is actually a really simple thing that dealers could be implementing, or BDC directors and sales teams. And it just starts with, in my opinion, a simple conversation from one of the parties. Hey, we want to have your sales reps. Hey, general sales manager, we'd love to have your sales reps come into the BDC and do some phone calls with us. And we'd love some of our BDC reps to come onto the sales floor and experience, firsthand how, sales is navigating a customer coming in.
Interested in becoming a salesperson. Because lots of BDC agents will tell you, like, well, I want to sell. And you're like, awesome. And how about you go and shadow somebody for a week? And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, you can't sell cars from the phone. And they're like, well, I've been doing it my whole life. Like, everybody comes in and they buy on the same day. I was like, do you really think that just because you brought them into the showroom, they bought? No, a salesperson still had to do their job. So I do.
Right.
I said, okay, go on. Who is the salesperson that sold most of your appointments? They will know right off the bat. It would be like, Aaron, awesome. Go and sit with Aaron for next 4 hours. But I'm not going to be able to hit my phone calls for the day. Don't worry about it. I'm going to sit at your desk, make your phone calls. Go and sit with Aaron for next 4 hours. And for the next customer he sells, I want you to get all the paperwork that you need for the delivery and help him deliver that car. And then they come back and they're like, wow, that was amazing. I was like, do you still want to sell? Absolutely. Or you'll be like, nope, I'm staying in BDC. So know where, their career trajectory is. And some people are fine with being like BDC forever, or being, like going from, BDC to BDM, BD director, or just like going into marketing vertical where they first become like a social media specialist and then, go from there and go to like the marketing director roles. And then you have your more standard people, BDC, sales assistant, sales, finance, sales manager, up. So like, talk to your people, because it's just so important to, have those conversations early on, and that's going to guarantee you success like years down the road.
I love this. I want to do a quick recap, and then I'm going to turn it over to you so that we can learn how to connect with you offline. Take a good hard look in the mirror. That's where we started. Things are changing. Perhaps they've already changed and you're late to the game. That's always a question you should be asking yourself. But look in the mirror. Ask yourself those tough questions. I would submit, too, to your point on the introspection. It's not going to happen overnight, but movement is better than sitting here grumpy that things are changing and not doing anything about it. And then I love the practicality of what you're saying on how to integrate these teams. And And in so doing, really, the mission is that in so doing, you're providing a better customer experience because you're causing your teams to listen more actively to one another, but also to the customer. You had mentioned a little piece there that I want to underscore, which is having reps and salespeople experience firsthand when a customer comes in frustrated, or when a customer comes in with questions that they're confused about. Like, just this increase in empathy for the customer is really why we want to do all this. And I want to thank you for bringing up these points and joining me on the show. How can those listening get in touch with you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I am very active there. I do have, Facebook, Instagram, and all those other pages, but those are more of a personal kind of connection. So find me on LinkedIn if you want to talk anything automotive and beyond. So it's going to be Marija Cvetkovska, spelled with a J. So I'm pretty much the only Maria there with the J in automotive. You'll find me easy. So it's Marija. And I'm there and looking forward to, connecting and talk to all of you.
Marija, thanks so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.